welcome back. This is Moho First Steps. My name's Danny, aka Moho Gal, and this is video 2 in a Starting Moho series. So if you've just bought Moho and you've opened it up and you're thinking, oh my god, what? Do not panic. I am here to show you what to do. So I opened Moho and I got this as my default file. Now Moho will open with a default file for you, and it might not be this one. This one's got a name, Gruel, maybe? And many of them do. So you can go and search for this file if you want to do the same thing as me, or you can use what I'm telling you to do in this video with your own rig. There will be ever so slight differences, but I'm willing to bet that it will just be semantics. So there will be some bones for you to mess with, there will be some controllers for you to mess with, there will be something that you can follow along with. If you want Gruel, let me show you how to open him real quick. So up here in the top right hand corner of Moho, we have a library book looking button, and it is a library book looking button because it opens the content library. Now you will have been asked where to save your custom content folder to when you first installed Moho. Don't panic about that just yet. We do not need it. We're just playing with what Moho gives us straight out the box. Content folder library, factory content library. We're just going to open this one and we're going to have a look through characters. You can tell I've already been here. So this is a lot of things that installs with Moho that you can play with, which I think is brilliant of them. So if we are, do you know, I haven't got a blooming clue where we would find this one, but in one of these folders, we should be able to find Gruel. Moho 1? No, not that old, surely. Moho 12? No, do you know what? I've got a feeling he's an anime studio guy. Is he? There you go. So if you navigate your way in the library, factory content library, characters, Anime Studio Pro 10, Gruel is here. You can just click and drag that over the window and it will open for you. So then you will have the same file as me. Okay? I'm just going to close that. I never open that, usually. Now then, so you will have opened that scene file, and let's just delete the key that I made last video, and Gruel will be animated for you. How exciting. So you can press the spacebar to play through the timeline, or you can just click, drag the playhead. Whoop. Make sure you're on the actual timeline itself, this one that's highlighted. We click and drag. There we go. We can scrub through. There's no audio in this scene, so we're not hearing anything, so that's good. But if we did have audio in this scene, it would play automatically on scrub through, which I find really handy. So that's that. If you wanted to change your in and out points, that's very easy to do. So let's say we wanted to make a change to the overall scene. We can either click drag in here, and that will change the scene in small amounts, or you can just type 250 or whatever your heart desires in this box, and it will change for you. So you see this blue line? That's what's going to play. That's the timeline. And then, what was it? Was it 170? No, probably not that long. You can click and drag in any data box in Moho, any at all. So if I clicked and dragged in this one, it would move the playhead. This is where we're at. And then this one would lengthen the timeline to whatever keyframe we need. Now then, we can set some temporary in and out points if we wanted to just play a little section. We can press Control and right click, and Control and left click, and that will give me my temporary in and out points. So now when I press spacebar, it's just playing between those 2 points. Super handy. I use it a million times a day. I use that all the time, forever just checking something small. And then Control and click on the little icons again will get rid of them. And I want you to remember that function, because that will come up for us again when we are doing onion skinning. Like when you click on something to set something, and then you click in the same space to unset it, if that makes sense. It will make sense later. Okay, so we talked a little bit about what we want to do for this video. We want to animate something brand new. We're brand new to Moho, and we want to just play with this little guy. Now I'm going to keep this really simple. I think we should just stick to the head. I might even suggest, oh no, I was going to say I might even suggest we hide the body and just use the head, but unfortunately, I mean, we could make this guy a little tube. Now I am just using the eye visibility checkbox over here on the layer panel. You're not deleting or destroying anything or animating the visibility of this layer. You're just turning it off and on, which is good to know because I have had students who are like, why is this not animating? I want to animate my layer off. We do that in a very different way, but I will show you that when we get to it. Okay, let's collapse the grow rig. I've hidden everything that I just don't want to see. You don't have to do that, but I'm just doing this to be very simple. Now then, I want to get rid of all this animation. And I can do that by click dragging, selecting every single key and just hitting the delete key, or I like to go to animation, menu, clear animation from document, and that will blitz absolutely everything and reset grow back to 0. There we go. Okay, now I want a much shorter timeline because I am not planning on animating a lot. I just want to show you what happens when we start. So we have a born layer selected as our active selection. So therefore we have our born animation tools available to us in the toolbox. If we're on 0, we have rigging tools. A lot more is going on there. But if we're on frame 1, animation tools. We've got we've got 4 born symbols on the top row. And if we hover over each one, we've got select born, and B is the shortcut. We've got transform born, and T is the shortcut. We have manipulate borns, and Z is the shortcut. And this is a parent, I think. We don't need this for animation, although we can animate parents. That's why it's still available to us. These 2 buttons here are the 2 that deal with movement. So these are the ones that I would use mostly. I'll show you the difference, but I have a favourite. And my favourite is the transform born tool. I can't find a use for this as somebody who's a bit of a control freak. If I'm animating, I like to know what I've moved. I think that's come from Maya back in the day when I kind of used to animate in the channel box and it would be by data sometimes. This is very loose. I want you to play with them though. So if we click on manipulate bonds, Z on the keyboard, and start messing around with these buttons. Manipulate bonds is a kind of handy way, let me just zoom in so you can see that, of manipulating multiple bonds at once. They have to exist in a chain of command. Usually for limbs, for hair, for tail. So we can manipulate an entire stretch of bonds like this from the bone that's at the bottom of the hierarchy. So it's almost like IK, but not quite. If you don't know what IK and FK is, I just said the word IK. If you don't know what that is, don't panic. We'll get to it when we get to it. But it essentially means manipulating a hierarchy of bonds from the base rather than not the base, from the tip. Sorry, why does tip make me laugh? From the southernmost bone. No, I'm going to stop trying to explain it. We'll get to it when we get to it, okay? So for now, I'm just going to delete this key. We're going to use transform bone. It's my favorite. I'll show you why. Now with this tool, I have way more control. And I'm going to move out onto the timeline now so I can show you this a little bit easier. I want you to keep your eye down here. When I move something with this tool, Moho will always automatically create a key. So there is an auto key function happening here. So if I change it there, it's already animating. If I change it here, I've changed my animation now. It's different because I've overwritten the same key. If I go somewhere else and change it, and if I go somewhere else and change it, there we go. We've got 3 keys now. Awful. I'm just going to delete these. So we can grab a bone with this tool and rotate. That's what I've been showing you. But if you see, we have widgets, and I'll do this over here on a bone where you can just see it better on a better background. So we have the rotate. We have a widget here at the base of the bone, which when we grab that, we translate the bone. So that's moving in X and Y. And a widget here at the top, we can scale the bone. Now this is great because we have maximum control over the bone. The dimensions are separated almost, so we choose what to use and when, and what to move and when, crucially, and I really like that. So, shut up, Danny. Let's get to some simple animation. So we have our T transform bone tool selected, and we're going to set up a first pause for this monster. I always like to start on frame 1 no matter what, especially for my first pause, because I will often copy and paste that key later down the timeline, which we can do very easy, very user friendly on the timeline. As soon as we do it once, you will never forget it, that kind of thing. It's really good. So like I was saying, let's do a very simple expression change. So we need, really, if we want to end on super happy, I want to start on the opposite of that. This rig is very simple. It doesn't seem like we have too much to play with. Let's try and get, let's think about contrast though. So whatever we can do. Whatever we can do just to make a big move. Let's try scaling that. Ooh, that's fun. Let's save that for later though. So let's make a pause. I would always, as an animator, try to wiggle everything if I can, but for this one, let's just keep it super simple. And if there is anything that I haven't keyed, if I haven't touched a bone, it has not got a keyframe. So if I, for example, if I select this bone, there are no keys on this bone. Now, I'm aware that you can see something, and so you're like, what? I can see a key. But let me show you this bone. Can you see the difference? If I select this one, and then select this one. Anything that's selected in Moho in the window turns red. That's really handy to know. So a selected bone is red. In the timeline, the selected bone is also red. So this is the key that belongs to this specific bone. I know that I haven't keyed this bone yet, so when I select that, all I can see is the overall key. There is no keys that belong to this one. That's a good thing for right now. What I would urge you to do though, is keep track of what you're moving. This is why I've hidden things. I just want to use the 3 bones up the trunk, and I want to use the controllers as much as possible, but I kind of want to just forget the rest exists. I want to forget they exist, so I know there's no animation on them. So I've animated this, this, and this. So every time I select one of those, I know that the key that this is referring to is the ones I've chosen. If that makes sense. If not, I'm sorry. You'll get used to it with repetition. Okay, so let's pretend I'm really happy with my first pause. What I want to do, if I hit nope, if I select that, why would that? Does escape? Yes, okay. Escape, the escape key will deselect everything. I think I just didn't have my window active. So nothing selected. There's nothing red, nothing red. So I know that this is the overall key for the overall animation. This is essentially this pause. With this key selected, I'm going to Control C or Command C and Control V or Command V. Or I could right click, copy, right click, paste. This is the same as this now. Now I have 2 keys. No animation is going to happen between these 2 keys because they're the exact same pause. Now then, let's keep things really, really simple. We'll just do 10 frames. On frame 25, we're going to do an entirely opposite pause. We want something like literally the opposite. That's what I mean when I said think about contrast. So now we want a big open mouth. We want the head the other way. We want the eyes up. We want the eyes right. Like anything that you can do. Eyes open to look super different. And remember that we can translate these as well. So we can get even more movement. We can get a little bit of lateral movement out of him there. Now then, here's another thing to note that is a little bit of a sticking point for sometimes someone who is new to Moho. I just moved this in a lateral way. I used the base widget of the bone and translated it left to right. So it comes away from where it was, and now it's travelled a little bit, which has created a key, which is expected. But we did not do that on our first pause. And so now there is a key here on the rotate of this bone, but not on the translate of this bone. So the translate is animating actually from 0, which is expected because I know how Moho works. But if you were not expecting that, that would frustrate you. Like when I very first started, if something was floating or moving, I was like, oh my gosh, how do I find what it is? Why? Why? I just want to delete this key and send this back to where it lived to get rid of that. And I must have moved something else laterally, so I must have used this too as well. There it is. I'm just going to delete that. And now there is no motion again. Now, there is something I do on every single shot on every job I have ever worked on, and that is I will key everything on frame 1 so that everything has a new pause that is different to 0. And so there cannot be any animation happening from 0 into my timeline, if that makes sense. So what I will do to key absolutely everything, there is a shortcut of Control F or Command F. And if I do that, it keys the rotate, the translate, and the scale of every single bone in the scene. So now we have 3 channels and 3 channels for the selected one. If I press Escape, we just have the 3 channels for the overall. We know that 15 is the same as 1. So we can select that and copy paste again. Now we have all our values keyed, and all our values are different from 0. So now we will not have any unexpected animation on any of these bones from 0, no matter what we press, because now we've already keyed all 3 channels. Ta-da! I love it. Contrast. Cool. Okay. I mean, that's a bit silly. Let's pull it down a little bit. Like, let's be a little bit sensible. Pause is king. So now we have an animation of 10 frames where Gruel has an emotional change. It's very boring though, isn't it? Very boring. I'm going to show you a bit of a Danny system here. You do not have to follow this, but with these pauses, let's pretend I'm really happy with 25. I'm really happy with 15, and therefore I'm happy with 1. These are my key pauses. These are the keys. These will be the drawings. If I drew out my scene and I was going to hand it off to an in-betweener, these are the key pauses I would give. I can mark my own key pauses by right-clicking on what I've selected, go down here to label, and I always colour my key pauses red. So now I've got 2 key pauses and some motion happening in between. I want to do a little breakdown maybe, so there is something more interesting happening in between these pauses. I never really want to let the software do everything. There is a reason I'm sat in the chair, if that makes sense. I want to be in control of this. This is my animator's pleasure to be in control of this. Just going to pull this down a little bit. So maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 frames into my movement, I can add a breakdown here. So that's on frame 19 for me. And if you're following along, happy days. If not, pick something that makes sense to you. But it needs to be in between the first key and the second key. And again, I'm thinking about contrast. We haven't had a blink yet, so let's close the eyes. Let's squash Gruel down a lot, maybe too much, really. This might be too much. Let's have a little bit of drag on the head. Oh my god, I love it. So for not much effort, maybe we'll keep the eyes closed a bit more here. Nice. Okay. I am just going to tweak this final pose because I think I lost Lost it a little bit because I didn't key all, remember that? Oh, I tell you what I will want to do then. So I tell you what I want to do. I'm going to key Control F everything on frame 25, which is something I also forgot to do, but I can do now. I'm going to right click, label this red. Now I'm happy. Great. And then for this pause, I'm going to pull him down in space because I want him to have some contrast. I want him to raise up at the end. And tweak that a little bit. I don't know why his tummy's disappearing. I assume it's a visual thing. Yep. Moho's doing a lot of calculating behind the scenes. Thank you, Moho, to keep the scene light and easy to use. Okay, so now that I'm happy with this is my breakdown pause. So I have a key, breakdown, key. I'm going to colour this orange because that's my system. So label orange. So red, orange, red. And then if I was going to be extra fancy, and when I say extra fancy, I mean I've done this on every single job I've ever had, I would copy and paste this key here. And it would actually become my final pause now. So I've got a little bit of down, and I kind of want maybe a tiny bit of overshoot here. So then he overshoots and then settles back down. You'll see what I mean as soon as we start playing through this after we've animated this bit. So by overshoot, I want him to go up a little bit, maybe even a little bit of rotate on the head, and then he will settle back here, look. So if I play through that now, I love it. I love it, except I don't love it. I love it, except let me just fix that a little bit just to make it a bit more me. There we go. And because we're keeping this really simple, I think we should leave it there. We just wanted to do a quick emotional change. We want to be moving the bones. We want to be rotating them. We want to be scaling them. We want to be moving them laterally, just to get used to those 3 channels that you have available to you to every bone. I want you to think about setting key poses. I want you to think about contrast in those poses. And I want you to think about your breakdown. How can you make it more interesting from point A to point B? What can happen in the middle? Something a little bit more fun than just moving through from A to B. And that will make you a great TV animator one day. Especially if this is your first time doing this. I want you to think about timing a little bit. Like, what happens if I dragged these out? If I made it too slow, it might look weird. It might look boring. Yeah, I mean, crap, right? So think about timing. I know roughly the timing that I wanted to do because I've got a lot of experience of animating children's TV characters. If I just Control Z that and go back to fast again, that's better to me. That feels naturalistic. That's something that I would automatically just do on a pipeline. I don't want you to worry too much about key types yet. I don't want you to worry too much about the rest of the body. Just stick to something simple. Just try and use the trunk and try and create different shapes using these bones. We're on ones. We don't have to think about that yet. We just want to work here, watch here. Okay. There you go. Just like that, you're up and animating. And you haven't even done anything yet. You haven't built anything. How exciting. Let me know if you found this useful. Let me know if anything went wrong for you. Let me know if you have any questions down below. Like I said, my name's Danny, Moho Gal. I love this and I cannot wait to help you. Thanks very much for watching and I will see you next time. Okay, bye.